Moving to oneness. Nourishing curiosity. Embracing differences. Becoming one.
All the way from China, I'm bringing you a fascinating wordsmith. So, someone who can craft whatever you desire to express and to bring into this world. So stay tuned. Hello everyone, I'm Meilin Ehlke, your host of the Moving to Oneness podcast. And all the way in Guilin, South China, I have with me today my fabulous guest, Stuart Elliott. Hello, Stuart, and welcome to the show Moving to Oneness.
Well, hello, Meilin, and everybody who is listening. It's great to be here. And I don't know about a fabulous wordsmith, but I'll take the compliment anyway. So thank you for that.
No, I had the honor to converse with you, and we could have done that for days. It was a lightness that you have within you to bring out in people the ease and the playfulness to try out things. And I think that is something that everyone has. And that's what makes you out. Maybe it is all of your life and experience. You've lived in so many countries. We'll talk about this. And how did you notice that it was important to have fun while you were looking for words?
Words for me are just labels, and I think it's the same for everybody. And I always give this example about a chair. If I tell you I'm sitting in a chair, you picture a chair that you're familiar with, and it may have nothing to do with the chair I'm sitting in. But the label allows us to construct a vision between two people. And, life is supposed to be fun. So why don't we just have fun whilst we're doing it and picture? I mean, you can picture a chair which is so crazy in this world, and you just see me sitting there and it makes you smile. And that's wonderful because, we're having a conversation. We're not doing anything serious. But on a more serious note, I think the fact that words are labels, we should understand that they do have different connotations for different people. And if we're having a respectful conversation, then we should try and listen and ascertain what that word means to the other person so that we can actually enter the vision that they've got, their world, and then we can have a much more personal, much deeper conversation. And that to me is very, very important. And I think it's the fundamental of communication, which is never taught to us. Which is a shame.
I love that. I'm very visual, Stuart. So when you were telling me about the chair and that everyone envisions it different, I had like a movie go by with all the different chairs I could imagine. As a designer, I just love a form, and a material is so important. Where do you sit on? I have like a couch I sit on. But it could be a hard metal chair. It could be a lounge chair, right? With a softness. It could be a Chinese style chair with a lot of a cutting into it. I don't know what the word is in English, right? Or the very modern, very simple ones, the different colors. And that was really interesting. And I love that, to play with the words and to look at the depths of how do I envision a chair or see it. And also, that when we do speak, that we envision our words to be also images. I love that. And also then to take the more time, as you hinted, to to understand what does the other person envision, because through whatever life experience we have, right, we will see a different chair, or even see what kind of chair the other person may sit on, because by, as you said, the labels, or maybe movies or books we read about. Let's say you're now in China. Are you sitting on a chair? Yeah, what kind of chair are you sitting on? That's
I'm
really
just sitting on your common garden computer chair. So it's not even Chinese, it's a universal chair, which is here. But what is a very important facet of the label situation is the connotation, the connection that a person has to the word. A little while back, I was working with somebody, we were doing a hypnosis training, and the lady I was working with, her day job is a carer or a nurse in a terminal cancer ward. So she experiences a lot of agony, trauma, whatever, every single day. And we were working with a subject called benign attention, which is where you just notice something, but you don't put any meaning to it. But that word benign had a connection to her about cancer and all the agony, all the trauma that she sees. And she couldn't work with that word because it was just, too loaded for her. Yes. So we had to get out a thesaurus, and I just went through a few synonyms of the word, and all of a sudden, bang, that was it. She twigged. Yes, that's it. That word is great, because that's not a loaded word for me. And, if you don't understand that, you can have a total miscommunication, because we all have associations with words.
Yes.
And another interesting way that this plays out was with Milton Erickson, who was a very, very brilliant person and hypnotist. And he died about, unfortunately, the late 70s, 80s. But there's a story about him where he would bring a patient in who he knew had a trouble being hypnotized. And he would sit him in a chair and he'd go through a whole procedure. And he knew he wouldn't be hypnotized. And they said, look, we've already shown that you can't be hypnotized. Why don't you just sit over there and just relax? And then he physically moved chairs and left all that association in the other chair, put him in the new chair, and he was out like a light. And he was able to do the work that he needed to do because of that association with that object, with that word. And it's a very deep understanding that if we get it, we can have such meaningful conversations. We can get rid of a lot of this miscommunication in companies, in offices, where people think the other person understands what they say.
Yeah, and I was thinking about fear. My mom came up, I took care of her. She had cancer. Luckily, it is disappeared now. It's gone. But the fear, and what helped was moving my mother.
Yeah,
she had to get up, move, and sit down somewhere else again to take in also information. So that lets me understand the story of the hypnotist a little bit more. And also for children in schools, right? We set them down and they have to sit in one spot for so long, even though we've all learned through brain and neurology that children love to move, and most of them take in much better information when they move. So they should change chairs or tables. I think my son in elementary school, after each vacation, every 6 weeks we have a little vacation, they got moved to a different location at least. But to do that more often, and also as a writer, right? I really like that. You can take that very far. So if you get a blockage, or let's say you don't remember, or you're not finding the words you want to say, you get up, take your maybe notepad, or maybe you switch to the computer, wherever you love to write on, and go to a different seat, a different location in your home, maybe outside in your garden, or you walk down to the cafe and keep on writing there. I love this association that it loosens up our thought process. Also, it loosens up the muscles in our body, in our throat, in our jaws, right? So we can move our lips better and form words.
And as a writer, you can change your pen
Mhm.
because that pen's got a blockage. Let's
Yeah.
get this pen. This one's working properly, just like the one pen runs out of ink, something like that. So we can use these visions, these models, if you like. And as long as we understand what we're doing, it becomes easy. And talking of writers, there was a very famous copywriter who he would write the first 5 pages or so, whatever, anything he would write. And then he would just take them, throw them away, and then just write. And the next pages were what were the real content. He wouldn't even look at what he'd written first. And he might even start off, I don't know what to say. Just start off this nonsense conversation just to get that, energy flowing, the correct energy. So it's a very, very powerful tool. And I think once we get that understanding and we take away our own internal fear, then we can let the fun go through. And another beautiful thing about writing is music.
Mm-hmm.
What are you writing? Are you writing something serious? Let's have some serious music. Are you writing something with energy? Let's have some energetic music, heavy metal, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever you can relate to, because that energy from the music will enter you and come out in your words.
Yeah,
Very,
music
very
is a big influence. I remember we had once when I studied landscape architecture, a teacher where we would listen to a piece of music and use different kinds of pens, thinner and thicker ones, and to just try out what would fit the best to us. And I think it was the Tchaikovsky, Mulder, a beautiful classic song. And yes, and then it started the flow. You became and you felt comfortable, especially if you found then your drawing tool, your writing tool. And yeah, music, as you said, it plays with our psychology a little bit, right? They know, I think that was in the 80s, the band Yellow. And if you played them, you would get a little aggressive. It had these tech sounds. But then if you get something else, you're right, if you want to write something, you want to write out what is deep in your heart and put on Yellow and it comes out because you get mad and then you finally can write what you always wanted to say, or you remember a love scene out of your life, and then you put on beautiful music and then you can write about that for a long time. Yeah, that's a fantastic hint, Stuart. Thank you.
Because it's energy, isn't it? We're just connecting to energy, which is all around us. We are part of the energy, and at different times, different days, we have that connection to this type of energy or that type of energy, and we can then use those tools to connect us to the energy which is going to be most beneficial to us at this moment. It gives us control. It gives us our self-power, which is very, very important. And obviously, you know a lot more about energy because you are a shaman. So, it's a very, very special thing. And we talk about, you spoke about the traditional composers. They tapped into that energy and found that music somewhere, because it's always there waiting for us to connect to it. So it's very, very interesting when we look at things in that way.
Yeah, to expand our horizon, right? So and not to, in a way, categorize. Now I'm writing, or I'm painting, or I'm thinking, I'm composing, I'm cooking, or whatever I'm doing, mathematics. Or as a lot of people come to you to find ways to learn language better, or a new language, or to release the fear of learning something new, right? A new language. Delve into that a little bit, because I think as so much newness is arising, that we are being asked to become more comfortable with ourselves, of how we are, but also then to shed what doesn't suit us, and to be able to learn what new things arise in our environment, in our politics, in our even world views. So how do you support people in letting or recognizing what is holding them a little back, and then inspiring them to find a new way to learn or look at learning a language?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't just use language, but it's a good example.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest fear I would suggest that many people have is the unknown. So anything new is unknown.
Yeah.
And we have this fear because we don't know. And that's why a lot of people repeat old habits, because anything new is out of their experience. And sometimes they have to be pushed quite hard by life circumstances to break that habit. Now, obviously, we don't want people to be facing dramatic life circumstances to get them to improve. So hypnosis is a wonderful way to help people go inside the unconscious and take away this fear, if you like, this blockage, and connect to their resources. Because when they were children, they didn't have this fear so much of knowing. I mean, did you ever see a child who was scared to communicate any way it wanted, any way it could, or was ever scared to walk or try and walk, even though it didn't know how to, it just knew it could do it? They didn't have these are things that we've learned over time for many, many reasons. So if we can connect to that and then recognize that these are resources we have, we learn to walk, we learn to speak, we learn to talk, so we can do more. But we've got to get rid of that fear that's been put on us or we've created for ourselves. But once we do that, then anything's possible. Within obviously physical realms, but anything is possible. We can learn. And another way we limit ourselves is by saying, "I don't know how." That's negative, or "I can't." It's negative. But okay, yes, maybe we don't know how yet. And we go back to language again.
Because and we say a little tweak, yeah.
Yeah, just a little thing. I mean, when we say "I don't know how," that's a limit. But when we say "yet" on the end of it, that's possibility. And then we add the knowledge that we've learned many things, so we can learn how to do this. Mm-hmm. And then we have opportunities, we have possibility. And it doesn't matter whether it's playing music, designing a dress, drawing a picture, creating a building. We can always find a way because we've learned so many things in the past. And that's possibility. That's the whole thing about, again, going back to language. How do we talk to ourselves? How do we view things? Do we view things from a limit point of view or a possibility point of view? Most people, it's a limit point of view. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you talk to the average person, you say, "Tell me 100 good things about you." You're lucky if you're going to get 10, 20 at maximum. Yeah. But you say, "Tell me 100 bad things about you." They're not going to stop.
All right.
Because we focused on negative instead of positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just learned also, from someone, if people write down first all the negative things, which you said they can do so well, and they cannot figure out how they want to be or what they want to create. If they write that down, then at least they have a list and they can take a look and then make a positive out of the negative, because it's something it disturbs them, right? So, but as soon as you turn it around and to create something positive or an action out of it, if it's a non-action, and already they're creating. Yeah, it's too bad that we have that so much. But I think it's dissolving, luckily, that the new generation sees more possibility and doesn't listen so much to vocabulary of the earlier generations. I would say myself, I'm still imprinted. Luckily, I have 2 languages or cultures I'm imprinted with, right? It opened me up a little bit, the German and the American. But my mother came from the East and escaped. So there was always the language of fear, of making yourself small. And still in the 80s, it comes up, and I've learned, oh my God, I'm speaking the words of my mother. I'm being her for a moment. And it took work and observance of myself to see, when am I speaking the language of someone else? And when is it really mine? And how do I feel when I speak it? And how do I want to feel when I speak? And what words do I prefer? So even if I go into metaphors, Stuart, I've learned I use the metaphors of nature, and especially of flowers, because I'm so connected to flowers. I'm so at awe if I see a flower, if I have to touch them, right? There's a strong connection for me to beauty, and to try to use that and utilize that in my life. So how is that also then in yours? You know, you've also have several cultures. You've now you're from Britain, then you lived in south of Africa, now in China, and I don't know where else you probably have lived. So how did that influence? Did you notice how you were changing your vocabulary in the different cultures you've lived?
I think that, you mentioned two very important points before that. And the first one was observing, being aware. And I think that is the key to everything, that you need to be aware of how you're thinking and how you're actually seeing things and viewing things. And the other is the power of flowers, because nothing stops them. They will find somewhere to grow, even in the most barren landscape. I mean, in talking of Namibia, there's something called a century plant, it lives most of its life on the ground for maybe 100 years. And then one day it will just bloom. It's crazy. They've got so much power. And I think what I've been lucky in some ways in that I've just decided sometimes, just do it. Just go. And we'll worry about everything else afterwards. Yeah. So, that's a nice thing, but it doesn't work for everybody because they need a little bit more certainty. But I've been able to do that. But what I really discovered more, and it's looking back over the experiences, is with awareness how I was behaving then. And when I was in Kenya, we were doing an overland trip through Africa. I had in my mind, I wanted a Maasai spear. And I was in Nairobi, and all the tourist shops were so expensive. And okay, we know about bartering, we know about this. This was back in the early 80s. There's no cell phones or anything like that. And I thought, okay, well, I've got a calculator here. I've got this. I've got some barter goods. And there's a wonderful experience, which I felt so stupid at the time, but I realized now, looking back on it, it was such a wonderful, wonderful experience to me. But we were camping there, and then these three Maasai warriors just appeared from nowhere. They'd seen, us there, and they came to say hello. And they were very, very educated, very nice, very friendly people. And I spoke to him, and I said, look, I really want your spear. Can I give you this calculator? We make a swap, because it was, at that time, it was an expensive thing. And I thought, it's going to be very beneficial. But, this is my stupidity at the time, my naiveness. So the guy takes it and he looks at it, he does a few calculations, and he's obviously been to university, school and everything else. He says, that's wonderful, it's lovely. He says, what use is it to me here? And I felt so small, because I hadn't entered into his world. I hadn't, understood what he's living with. And his job is to look after the cattle in Big Five country. If there's lions, what's he going to do with a calculator? Throw it at them. But the way he said it, he was so nice about it. It really taught me a lesson, which took me a little bit more time to sink in, because I felt so embarrassed about how, not obnoxious, but how short-sighted I'd been. How, I'm an educated sort of Western and you're an African person, and all this nonsense that we carry around with ourselves. But it was a beautiful lesson, but it's only with awareness and looking back and seeing what life has presented to you and how you can grow from anything. And that's the important thing. We always have that choice of how we grow from things, how we react to things. And sometimes the lessons take time for us to, absorb them, but they're there for us always. And sometimes you don't know when it's just going to pop into you and say, now I know.
Yeah.
And this is what life is about. And, if you trust yourself, if you just be okay, I'll trust that there's always going to be something, always going to be a way. And that, you've learned so many things in the past, so you can always learn something else.
Yeah, this story is what you mentioned also. It fits exactly to what you mentioned at the beginning, that we have to really understand. So sometimes our life stories also are our best teachers, what we integrate and can bring forward in when we support other people, right? Because then it is embodied knowledge. It's a whole different feeling to it. You also speak different, and other people feel then also the energy of the words. They can sense the whole story, and they can sense what you went through. So when we give it advice or guidance, right, it comes from our life. And I think this is going to become more and more important in the way of what we bring forward, for example, as educators, teachers, right, guides, authors, the list goes on, speakers, that we do share from what comes from our life, because then our whole body speaks. And the energies that come through can be read by the others. And the more when you speak, you also take in a way, the realm of your opposite person you converse with, or maybe it's a whole room, or it's a classroom, or I don't know, maybe you're speaking to a big stadium. But they're all individuals in there. And if I open up to be totally present for what is needed in the moment, the right story, the right advice, the right teaching comes out, right? Did you experience that yourself, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying about the energy, I mean, is very, very important, because a lot of people only listen to the words. They're not listening to the energy from the other person. And, we can say one thing, but our whole body is talking in a whole different story. And if we're not listening to that energy, that's a big thing, and just using words and taking the fact that words are labels. We can use a very common word, love. I love this. I love you. We can say it so many different ways. And I think there's something like 50 different synonyms or meanings of the word, just that one word. But if you hear it and then you listen to the word you want, you're not hearing the full message that the person's giving, because you're not communicating as a complete entity. You're not using your energy. You're not allowing the energy to come to you. You're not seeing the body language. You might be seeing the eyes, you might be seeing the face, but you're not seeing the rest of the body, how that's talking to you. So there's a whole big picture that you're missing. And it's the same, as you said, about speaking to a big crowd. There's a lot of people in the crowd. You can't watch every individual, but you can notice that they will form groups. And these little groups will have a leader, and that leader will, influence the group, and they will all react in a certain way. So there's a whole energy that's coming there that once you connect with, then you've got communication. And when I was teaching English, I'd walk into the classroom and I would give energy to the class. They would give me energy back. And if it was good energy that I gave, I would get good energy back. And then the whole classroom lifted. The whole energetic level of the classroom lifted. And there was another teacher who was in the school at the time. He struggled. because he would take negative energy into the class.
Mhm.
The whole thing went down, and he used to get so frustrated with himself, with the students and everything. And he didn't understand. I mean, it was very, very difficult to communicate with him. He'd come out of a class, he'd throw his books away, and he's gone. You know, and it was just an energy thing that he hadn't understood. And it's that to me is so important, because energy, everything is energy. Even that wall that you look at or you bang your head on is just a piece of energy that's, you know, manifested in that way. And it's difficult to understand that sometimes.
Yeah, and children,
Yeah.
about classrooms, they're so in tune with energies. They pick up anything within you, right? You don't even have to say it. They can feel it a room away or further. And and they just play with energy. So they go up and down. And too bad. It would be important to give teachings also to teachers, or even in the educational system, right? How can you raise your own vibration before you go in a classroom, it goes really, goes for everyone who goes into work and works with many other people. Even if you would think about a factory, if they still have people and not just robots, but but this is so important to take a moment, and also to take the authority for yourself to say, no, I'm going to raise now my energy, more or less like someone, a star, when they go on stage. They're maybe the only ones that practice that, that you go on energy, and also that you look, what is the energy in the room? How can I uplift it again? And movement is a big one, right? Interaction and inviting others to come.
Can I just stop you and just point out one little phrase that we often use, and it sows doubt in the back of our minds. How can I? Well, that's a question. Can I? Rather than say that, we should be looking, and this comes back to awareness and listening to the way we speak and think, how I can do something, because now we've got possibility again. And these are all little things that we do without noticing. And as we build more and more awareness, then we can do so many things. And, it's so important to find these rituals, like you said, to lift your energy and believe that it doesn't matter what happens, we can always do something. If I forget my words, I just tell the people, I've forgotten what the heck I was going to say. It's a conversation with friends.
Yeah, beautiful.
And if we put ourselves on the spot, it makes the audience uncomfortable. If we're talking to friends, they don't care. They're happy. They're relaxed. And I can't remember the guy's name, but there was somebody who did some work with a public speaker who had a big fear. And he said, the first thing I want you to do on stage is get on stage and tell people how scared you are, how nervous you are, and laugh at me if I make a mistake. Because he was then changing the energy in the room. He was taking that fear away. He was giving them the order to relax, and they accepted him, and everything went up from there. There's 1,000 ways we can do it, but it's understanding, as you say, the energy that we bring. And English has this expression, Monday morning blues. Everybody is winding down from a great weekend. Oh no, we've got work. What are they taking with them? What are they bringing to work, into the traffic, into the commute? Negativity.
Yeah.
And it's the thought process we go through. We've just had a wonderful weekend. Great. Let's live with that. Let's enjoy all the energy we've taken from that weekend. And we can take that energy and bring it into the work and see how we can make work better.
Yes. Genau. To bring that fun into work. It goes, so I two things. Asking questions opens up the unfathomed, because life is this way. We can't really plan out life. It always comes different because we're a multitude of of beings. And I invite everyone, don't separate your work from your life, integrate it. And I hope maybe you live your passion, and if you don't live your passion, see how you can bring a little bit of your passion into the work. If you do not find a way yet to express fully who you are, but start slowly and ask, as Stuart said, these quick questions. Oh, what could I do a little different this morning? Or it starts with, can I drive a different way to work? Yeah, and is there a new route, or on the way home, to be flexible? And I think we were speaking about, Stuart, right, even the flexibility to look for new words. You were saying to look for synonyms, right? It opens up a whole agenda when one word, and it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel comfortable to speak over the tongue or to move the way with the lips, right? One feels when a word is not right. Or even if you're a writer, right? If you read something aloud, you can sense it because your muscles in your body also sense what is truth or what is right or not right for you, or even for the moment, or for someone else. And so, yeah. And one other interesting point I thought while you were speaking is to share more about us, to educate people also about the meaning of our vocabulary. Yeah, what I understand under beauty, for me, beauty, for example, is all-encompassing. It's the form, it's life, vibrancy, radiance, right? Or other things, because as you said before, it's the life experiences that I had that someone else here didn't have, that I can explain what I feel, what I sense behind my vocabulary. So the other person is included in my life. So in a way, feel free to educate the others of the ways we are. I think this is also something I envision that more and more of us do, so that we, as you said, the label, it's not so labeled then anymore, because then as I share about myself, the other can take the time to understand me. And then there's even a more different depth, or a deeper depth to a conversation, or to speaking or teaching.
That goes to asking questions and then listening to the answer. I mean, if we go back to the analogy of the chair, I like sitting on this type of chair. What chair do you like? What's your favorite chair? What does it look like? What color is it? And then when you hear that, and you can feel that energy when they connect to something, and again, you have an experience. Oh, this meant this to me. What did it mean to you? What did you take from it? And you hear, and you can see them, they will connect to that energy. And then you know that you've got a proper basis for communication, because you're starting to understand that other person and what they need in their life. And we all have tasks that we have to do. And we always focus, or I wouldn't say always, because that's a very poor choice of words, but we often focus on, I have to do it. I hate it, but I have to do it. But there's always a benefit. And even if that benefit means we're freer because it's been done, focus on the benefit. There's always a reason. If you don't like your job, it gives you money to buy food. It gives you something. Let's focus on that benefit and help us to increase our energy. And then, okay, if the job is so demoralizing or demanding that you want a different job, focus on how you can find another job. But at the moment, we're here, so we've got to do it. So let's get through it with as much fun as we can have. And remember all the good things, take that energy and feed it into what we're doing. And then, it's amazing how the whole task can change.
Yeah, quickly.
For instance, I don't like cleaning the floor. but the floor gets dirty. But sometimes I put it off and I put it off and I put it off. But once I've made that start and I've seen that little clean piece, then I'm focused on the clean piece. I want to do the next one. And I want to do the next one because I'm focusing on the benefit. And that gives me energy, which I didn't have before.
Yeah, cleanliness, interesting. I learned that from the Koreans, even for any ritual, or they have a festival, or they have visitors, or they want to raise their vibration, they do start to clean. So it is, again, goes back to moving energy out of small corners or collected things. So, and sometimes, we don't need to do the whole task or the whole room.
No.
Sometimes it goes back to when we were speaking, moving from one chair, a pupil into another one, or inviting them to move, even changing an object in the room already starts creating a change. So often when I know big change is coming, I suddenly have to do something in a home. Like, I don't know, I traveled once, and I was, speaking funny, in Las Vegas, and my mom was, I had to wash the curtains in my house. How often do you do it? Every few years? And then, why do I have to do that? But there was a change that needed to happen at home, my home, where my haven, where I feel comfortable, right? My medicine. Before I had to go, before I went on my trip to speak, there was my first stage, big appearance at that time at the Inspire Theater. But that gave me a momentum, and that made me feel flexible. That gave me the ability to create, to move forward, to go. Momentum is the word again, to get something rolling. And so this, I invite everyone, whatever you have to change in your home, sometimes do it, because it's the right thing, and it catapults you in a way into new things. Do you notice that with certain words when you teach? You're now in China, so you to teach people to speak English. Do you notice like certain words, once they have a certain words, it makes it easier for them to learn other words?
Yeah, I mean, I don't teach now. I used to teach, but one of the big challenges is that people are focusing on the word, trying to understand the meaning of one word. And by doing that, they're isolating everything and not listening to the communication. And you can be talking to somebody and they focus on translating this word in isolation, and you've moved on in the conversation, and they're still trying to translate that one word, and they don't understand the thing that's said. So sometimes trying to hear one word, you're missing out on the communication, the whole message. And that is something which is a challenge. And is, again, it goes back to the way people are taught. A child doesn't focus on words. It listens to the energy. It listens to the message. It hears the message and understands the message. The words don't mean anything. It's the energy you connect to them at the time, which is important. Because you say, I mean, how many times does a child hear a swear word spoken by a parent?
Often.
And then it repeats it, it repeats it, it repeats it. It doesn't know the meaning of the word.
No.
It just knows that energy. It just knows that energy, doesn't it? It says it to somebody, oh yeah, that's a great reaction.
Yeah, because then the whole body is involved, maybe because of that.
Yeah. So it's, the words are just, again, we go back to the words being labels. It's the message, the energy behind the message, which is important. So it's very interesting. And what is, using one word again, what is, I would say, a key to everything is that awareness of what's happening and what is communication. You mentioned earlier about younger people. They are becoming more aware of all these rigid stereotypes, and that's wonderful because they're starting to see a much bigger picture. They're not hemmed in like they used to be. And that's wonderful, because it's, communication isn't about one word or two words. It's about the whole energy message and what's really meant by that message.
Yeah, it's so funny. I as a channel, as I have to feel really open and loose to speak other languages that I channel through, or words from other beings. And it's a practice. I had to become very aware even of minute muscles within my body when they were changing. I'm also a little bit more of a physical channel, so I can sense when my body move, right? Because to speak different tones, volumes, sounds that are culturally different, that has to. And I remember when I studied with the Koreans, they had to translate. So sometimes I translate a life of, and I remember I thought they didn't even know how to speak English. And then they were put in front of a room and they had to translate from Korean into English. And they were able to do that. So why were they able to do that? Because they also stayed so open. And so maybe this is also a invitation to everyone. Stay open and let everything flow through, to become aware when we tighten and say, oh, I'm tightening. What can I do to loosen up and be more me? And then it's also easier to take in languages, easier to let things flow through, to be in the moment, Stuart, as to listen to your environment, not just a person. It's really interesting. We have a whole environment that speaks with us. We sense it sometimes. Where do we feel comfortable or uncomfortable? Again, we can question that. So I love really when I was mentioning your wordsmith, but you're really so much more. You're more smith of sentences, of questions. And give people a few examples of what are good questions to ask, to bring a lightness into their life and be open for change.
Well, a very good phrase is there anything more to that? Or tell me more, So, you were talking about communicating, talking to people, and they say something. Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Because it gets them to open up, and it gives you the opportunity to listen to the energy there. And it also tells the person that you are interested in what they're saying.
Yes.
And that's a big key, because quite often we're not listening to the person. We're formulating an answer or a question or a response whilst they're still speaking. We've not heard their message. We're not listening to their message. But when you take that time and then, oh, that's interesting, and you acknowledge that you've heard it, you say something, and then you say, is there anything more about that? How does it make you feel? And then we're getting a bond, an energetic bond, and they can explore because they feel that you really care about them.
Yeah, you have children too, and so especially when even me with a teenager now, exactly that's it. And you said to go deeper and deeper with each question after they've said something, and we go into the question of what was said, right? Not a totally different question, but to share that we're trying to understand, or for me as a mother, to understand where it's coming from. And so it's a short sentence for my teenager and other teenagers. But to hear out and pull and invite again, so he shares more in that, and that I can show him that I'm understanding, or at least trying to understand, right? Even with the teenager, they you're not understanding. But if I show that I do care, then they can go in, and I ask more and more questions in a finite way to the words, to the sentences they have spoken. You probably see that also with your younger children, where they don't have the vocabulary, but they still want to express right? What they've
Definitely.
experienced. Or
And we have to try and meet them where they are in their world, because everyone's got their own little world that they live in. And if we can meet them and join them in that world,
beautiful.
then we can have a conversation, because we're actually caring about them. And it doesn't matter the age of the child. I mean, for instance, my two children, my youngest is about 3.5 and my eldest is 5. And the eldest loves drawing, and she was drawing away on this paper, and the youngest made a big mark on it, and she's crying, and there's all the drama that goes on with it. And so I managed to calm her down a little bit. And I said, "Okay, that's interesting. What's wrong? What happened?" And Meimei Meimei is the little child. Gigi is, Chinese for big sister, and Meimei is little sister. And she did this and this and this and this. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting." She says, "Do you think you can make a butterfly with it?" And she just stopped, because now she's seeing possibility rather than destruction. And I'd enter her world because I knew she likes butterflies. She likes drawing them, and she likes drawing. And I was seeing how we can make something and grow something out of something which was unexpected. And now you can look at it in a negative way, as she was initially, or you can look at it in a possibility way. And she drew this butterfly. She was so happy.
Yeah, because then someone else's energy that was introduced to a painting,
Yeah.
and for a moment it makes you work. It's even for adults difficult to do paintings with each other. But once you open up to it, and that suddenly someone has painted over you, right? You say, "Oh, that creates something new again that I would have not done before, or seen, or experienced," and boom, something really beautiful comes out again. And this interaction, a beautiful way. Yeah, a good example.
It comes from possibility rather than, we can't stop what happens to us. We can't control those external factors, but we always have a choice how to react to them. And that's a very, very valuable lesson for every single person on this planet, from the youngest till the eldest. We don't have the ability, to change these external things. And quite often the external things are there to teach us lessons, but we can always, always, always change how we react to it once we understand that fundamental lesson.
I love that. How we react to the words we speak. Sometimes we say words we didn't, or maybe they came out because, as again, you said something that from your culture or your family, that was a typical thing, but you don't want to say it anymore. And also react of what is spoken to you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you say things from your culture which is offensive to another person from a different culture.
As well, cultural language.
If you're not aware of it, if you're not watching, if you're not communicating, you don't see it. And you wonder why these people have just closed down. Because they've been insulted. And you didn't mean any insult. But if you're watching and you're connected energetically, you can feel that shift and you say, "Okay, what did I do that changed it?" Or you can explore it.
Yeah, I had to laugh. I didn't want to laugh at you, but I laughed at all the experiences.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've all done it.
But often they were really funny then, once you then dissolve it, right? That made you laugh, that built connection. And if we don't do this push off, so everyone, I invite you to don't push things off, even when people come in different generations and different kind, they think different. And we have to be open to that and not see so much, I've learned, the negative of what they're saying, but what do they really want to say? And are the words they're using saying what they really want to hear from you, or what they're asking, or what they're trying to tell you? So there's, again, another level to language. Yeah, and which is so different. Well, it's really complex. And so, Stuart, so I really love the idea of feeling the whole. So if we feel the whole, right, Stuart, not just a single word or a certain body movement or, the tone of the voice, but if we look at the whole picture, then it's easier to feel comfortable, to understand, to go in with the other person and sense who they are, and why are we even conversing, and why are we even maybe together in the same location, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you think of your experiences talking to people, channeling, or being on the stage, what are you actually doing when you're performing at your best? You're connecting energetically.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, then the choice of words, to a certain extent, becomes superfluous, because it's the energy you're putting into the words which is giving the real message, because you're connected to that person or those people. And, I'll give you an example of connection to an animal. When I was in Zimbabwe once with a friend of mine, we were staying in Vic Falls, next to Vic Falls, Victoria Falls National Park. And we'd rented a little chalet, and there were no fences or whatever. And I said to my friend, okay, I'm going to go and start the fire for the barbecue. In South Africa, we call it a braai, but I'm going to start the fire for the barbecue. And he said, okay, I'll get the meat ready. And he's in the chalet, and about 100 yards away is this little brick thing where we can start the fire without any problems. And there was a bush there, a big bush next to it. And I'm just putting the wood there, and I just happened to feel or sense something. I looked up, and there's an elephant, not less than 10 feet away from me. So I just looked at the fire, looked at him, and said, if I start the fire now, the smoke might well go there, and it's going to upset him, and that's not nice. So I just stayed there, and we just enjoyed each other's company. We had a communication without saying any words. And in that time period, I saw that next to him, there was a little bush book in the bush. And then a little bit later, there was about 5 warthogs that came strolling down this path. One of them actually brushed my legs and carried on towards the river to get a drink of water for the evening because it was dusk. A troop of baboons came across, and this whole thing took about 10 minutes. And it was just the most wonderful, wonderful experience. I was part of that whole scene. I wasn't an intruder. I wasn't viewed as an intruder. They just accepted me as being part of it. And there was that underlying communication that we were all belonged here, and we were all good friends. It was just wonderful. And then when the time had passed, he casually just strolled away. The bushbuck disappeared, the baboons had gone, and I was able to light the fire. It was just the most beautiful, beautiful experience of being connected.
Yeah,
and we can get
present,
that with people.
right? Being present.
Yeah, and we can get that
with
people. You get that with people. You just know there are some people that you just, being next to them, being near them is enough. Because there's that hidden communication, or that subtle, energetic communication, however you want to put it. And it's just a beautiful experience. Doesn't matter where you are, how it happens, it's just the most wonderful experience.
This is so beautiful. You're a very fascinating man, Stuart. So in your coaching, you probably also attract interesting people that have much to bring to this world and are ready to do that. How would they be able to connect to you?
The easiest way would be to just go to my website and complete the contact form. And to make it easier for people, just use Stuart, STUART, at spg.bz. That's my website. I'll just go spg.bz, www.spg.bz, and they'll go straight to my website, Strategic Personal Growth, and then they can contact me through the contact form or whatever there.
Oh, perfect, because everyone, I invite you, wherever you are in the world, Stuart, I mean, we just touched or scratched the surface. His life experiences and his love for people, and the love that you have, Stuart, for people to feel comfortable within themselves to bring out who they are, and you do that in such a with such a softness. I mean, but that which provides a lot of strength, right? Because you sense and you listen, you give the room and space for people to feel comfortable and safe, to open up and to explore and try out new things. Maybe because of your curiosity, Stuart, you're fascinated by anything existing. You travel the world, you want to know more and more, and be part of everything, and that comes through in your work and also in the results that you provide for your clients. So I keep on doing what you're doing. I love that, and yeah, because you have so much more to share and bring to the world.
Yeah, I think what's very, very important is that people realize everybody has a lot of potential. And unfortunately, we are often in our own way. So we can't realize that full potential. And all I do is help people to discover the potential within themselves and help them to get out of their way and remove a few things which are holding them back, so they can realize that potential in them. And when they do that and they smile and they suddenly see, that's the biggest reward in the world for me. It's just wonderful thing.
And going back to the connection and being, we call that sometimes being invisible, that you're so part of nature that you are invited by wild animals to that they sense you're no threat, and that you're so open to and present for accepting them also who they are, right? They sense that, like the children, and that speaks without words.
Well, again, words
so much about you.
Yeah, words are sometimes, we put too much importance on words sometimes.
Yeah.
And we miss the energy communication.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for people to take away today, right?
Yeah, that's
energy.
The deeper communication. Yeah, because we are energy, and energy is everywhere, always. And, Mozart used to connect to that energy to compose his masterpieces.
Yes, he did.
He used to just.
Why we can listen after centuries still and love his music and
it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And again, once you listen to that music and you connect to that energy, it changes you. It changes your mood.
Yes, it does.
Wow, it's just so wonderful.
Yeah.
We can carry on for hours and hours.
So we have to repeat this. You have to come back. So energy is almost like the last sentence, but I want to ask the last big sentence, maybe not energy, because you've used it so often and pointed that out. What would be another interesting thing for people to become aware of that is within them? Okay, we said potential. We did into many things.
I think that the biggest thing is that they become aware of how they limit themselves without realizing it, how life has maybe caused a lot of blockages. And one of the biggest things I think that people have, and it's an unconscious thing very often, is that they don't feel good enough. And this limits them in so many ways. People will go out and buy flashy clothes, flashy cars, flashy handbags, whatever. So people look at them and they think that people are respecting them because of it. But actually what it is, they're not really respecting themselves. And there's many reasons that this can be developed over a long time. I mean, we speak about teaching, we speak about the education system, homework. Most of the time you get your homework back, it's full of red crosses or red underlining, and this is wrong, that's not good. And, parents, they care about their children. But when they hear the child cry, they say, what is wrong with you?
That's a good one.
And what happens is over time, the child picks up the message. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And they carry it with them into adulthood. And it's these little things which are repeated, which unfortunately bring us limitations as we get older and cause us to doubt our abilities, our possibilities.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
it's a shame. It's a big shame because, as I say, we've all got this potential. We've got so much potential. And if we can start connecting to it and take away these limitations that have been impacting us for a long time, then the world can be such a wonderful place. And, going back to what you said earlier with, the younger people today, they're seeing things without a lot of these limitations that were put on people of our age. They're being more open. They've got more awareness. And that's just wonderful because it brings this whole new realm of possibility.
Yes, it does.
To the world.
So wonderful to have had you, everyone. Look at the word wrong, maybe find something, ask different questions to your child, right? Mm-hmm. What do you ask then, Stuart? Give the audience
What are you experiencing? I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, with the person. They're crying over something. Something's upset them. So what is it that's upset them? What's caused you to be not so happy at the moment?
And this is a good thing also to ask ourselves. We often say that to ourselves. Yeah. If one word becoming aware when we're speaking it, and then I invite you, everyone, that I ask your partner, your children, your friends, or business colleagues to make you aware when you use it, or maybe they notice when you think it. And so invite others to help and support you in transforming your vocabulary. So the vocabulary supports you, that the vocabulary becomes medicine for yourself and for others, and so for the world.
Yeah, and do it in a fun way. Don't castigate yourself for it. Yeah. That's the thing. Don't say, oh, no, I'm using that. And because then you bring in negativity. Just laugh at yourself. Have a little bit of fun, Just one last quick thing about the children. I've taught them that if they hurt themselves, if they bang something, they walk into something, there's a message. It's good. There's a message for them. And I say, and what does that mean? What does ow mean? Don't do that. And you know what happens? I hurt myself. I go, ow, Daddy, don't do that.
Yeah, they become observers themselves.
Yeah, right? And then you laugh because you don't get angry with yourself because you've hurt yourself. You laugh because then the whole mood changes.
Yeah,
the messages come through.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like the children again. I think it's so important to laugh. It raises the vibration we were talking about, right? Just laughing and smiling and having fun is.
Yeah, I think if there's two things to take away from today is, number one, be aware, and number three, look for the fun.
Yeah, perfect. Stuart, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with the audience, the listeners, the viewers of the Moving to Oneness podcast. I wish you the best, and to your family, and that you bring more of your richness into this world. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Do play more, become aware of the vocabulary you're speaking, what you're even hearing or reading, and see how you can put a few new drops into this vast ocean, because the few drops of love in even a vowel or a constant can change the world. So goodbye. I'm your host, Meilin. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and you keep doing what you're doing, Meilin.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye now.